You're still not
Lauren.
on.
Here. Hines. Richard.
Here.
Willie.
Here.
Matthews.
Here.
Davis.
Here.
Manella.
Here.
Drum.
Here.
Randolph.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, public announcements, phones and pagers, please put them on silent, vibrate, whatever, and just had to turn mine off. All right, appeals, if you disagree with any decision that this commission makes, there are appeal cards over on the railing to my right. Please complete it and turn it into staff. Speaker cards, same thing, they're over to my right, and if you wish to speak on any item, please fill out one and they'll bring it up here to us. Public speaking, each item will have 10 minutes for each side with a 5-minute rebuttal. After your case is heard, please do not stay in the building and talk. If you go out in the lobby, the sound still comes back into the chambers here. Please rise for the invocation by Mr. Randolph.
Gracious Father, once again, we come to you to give you all the praise and all the glory, to say thank you for watching over and protecting us all day long, keeping us from all hurt, harm, and danger. We thank you for this opportunity to represent as commissioners, this parish. We thank you for the citizens that we serve. We thank you for those that are here tonight. Allow us to make decisions that's in the best interest of this parish. And all these blessings we ask in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Mr. Matthew, play it.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, in your packet was the draft copy of the minutes for the July 8th meeting. Are there any corrections that need to be made?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the minutes as written.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Matthews, seconded by Mr. Randolph. Please vote. Motion carries. Thank you. Consent calendar, any items not pulled from the consent calendar automatically dispensed by vote as approved and or as per staff comments. Items pulled from the consent calendar shall be discussed and voted upon individually. Staff, do we have any that need to be pulled?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, on page 1, MS 1407-041, and on page 2, MS 1407-044.
All right. Any of the commissioners have any that need to be pulled?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to pull all the rest of them, please.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Entering parish rights of way and servitudes easement. Yes, sir. Bug?
I don't know if this is the correct time to not to do it, but we have a request under final subdivision review, the first item. The council that represents those folks has a conflict. He's got to present another deal tonight at another governmental agency, and I'd like to have that one pulled up.
I'll second it.
All right, which one is it, Bug?
It's SD 04-08-024F5.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second to move that item up. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion carries to move it up. All right, this is on page 3 under final subdivision review, SD 04-08-024, F as in Frank 5, Beedico Creek Phase 5, Ward 1, District 1. The developer owner is Beedico Creek Preserve LLC. The engineer is Kelly McEwen Associates Incorporated. This is in Honorable Marty Dean's district. Staff?
Periodic inspections have been made by this office during the construction, and the final inspection was made July 30th, 2014. The inspection disclosed that all concrete roads are constructed, road shoulders need to be constructed, and the roadside ditches need final dressing. The following minor uncompleted items existed at the time of final inspection and will be completed before the plats are signed. Items A through E are okay. F, typical street cross-section needs to indicate concrete construction, not asphalt construction on the as-built. The plat's okay, but the as-built needs to reference that. Item G is okay. H, need all signage installed. Need as-built signage drawings and engineer certification that signage conforms to MUTCD standards. Needs blue reflectors at fire hydrants. Should the Planning Commission approve the request for final approval, a warranty obligation will be required for the infrastructure in the amount of 1,500 linear feet at $25 per linear foot, with a total of $37,500 for a period of 5 years. The staff recommends approval of the proposed final subdivision request, subject to the developer complying with all comments and no plats to be signed until all items are satisfactorily completed. No mandatory developmental fees are required since a public hearing was held prior to January 1st, 2005. Department of Environmental Services has comments.
A negative bacteriological report relative to the construction of the project's water system has not yet been issued by DHH as required by Section 4070 of the Subdivision Regulatory Ordinance 499. A letter of acceptance and responsibility for the perpetual maintenance and operation of the water and sewer system has not yet been issued by the utility provider as required. Staff recommends approval of the proposed final subdivision request, subject to the developer complying with all comments and no plats are to be signed until all items are satisfactorily completed. Development has no comments.
All right, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr.
Doherty.
Rowe.
Paul Marone on behalf of the developer. I appreciate the indulgence by the commission in moving this matter up to accommodate another public hearing that I have to attend this evening. As staff noted, the comments have largely been addressed. I understand that a submittal was made today which addressed those. In regards to item F, which is the typical cross-section for the street, noting that it's concrete. We made that amendment on the plan itself. We will make the submittal showing it on the as-built, or correcting it on the as-built, hopefully as quickly as tomorrow. In regards to the blue reflectors, those have been installed. I spoke with the contractor this afternoon. Also spoke with the contractor about the signage. The signage will be installed no later than Friday. Of course, once that's done, then our engineer can provide the as-built and the certification with regards to the MUTCD standards. So by Friday, we'll have all of the work completed, other than the as-built on the signage, which our engineer should be able to have to you very early next week. With that said, we would respectfully request approval. As you'll see from the plan, this is just an extension of an existing street to add the 28 lots in this Phase 5. And we would respectfully request approval, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that any of the commissioners may have.
Thank you, Mr. Roan. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak on this, either for or against? All right, I'll close the floor to the public, bring it back to the commission. Mr. Matthews.
Yeah, Paul, I agree with the staff that many of these items, A through J, really are ministerial and really of little consequence, but the items such as the signage and the blue reflectors, to me, are generally a problem that the subdivision really has not been finished. However, as you have given us your word that those two things will be finished by Friday, I'll accept that, but I really don't like the developers coming in when it's really not finished. The other thing I have just a question on is the maintenance for the water and operation of the sewer system. Why do we not have a letter from the utility provider as yet? I mean, that ought to be kind of matter of fact, since this is an extension of an existing setup, isn't it?
Right. Although I would tell you that typically that is one of the last items to come in. In this case, the provider is the parish, is Tammany Utilities. So there needs to be approval by DHH, of course, and then on from there to the parish. So DHH really is the first trigger. Once they approve, then the parish can issue the acceptance.
So really DHH is the holdup?
That's correct.
I understand that. I move to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Matthews, a second by Mr. Davis. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, back to page 1. Under minor subdivisions, MS 14-07-040, a 145.65 acre tract, Tract D into tracts D1 through D4, Ward 1, District 1. The owner is Allstate Financial Company and others. The surveyor is John E. Bono and Associates. This is in Honorable Marty Dean's district. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The reason for the public hearing for this is due to the fact that this parcel was previously part of an existing approved minor subdivision. The owner is proposing to create 4 tracts from a Tract D that was part of the previously approved minor subdivision. The proposal complies with Parish Code, therefore the staff has no objections to the requests.
Thank you. Mr. Maroon?
Thank you, Mr. Doherty. Paul Marone again on behalf of Allstate Financial Company. Nothing really to add to the staff comments other than to point out that these are tracts that you've seen before. Tract D1 is in fact the Watercross subdivision tract, which you have seen through at least preliminary, if not, tentative, if not preliminary, I believe. And Tract D4 is the parcel that will house the Children's Museum, the amphitheater, and the proposed theater for the performing arts, which will be parish parcels. So this is a step in the direction to create those parcels so that each of those matters can move forward. I'll be glad to answer any questions that any of the commissioners may have with regards to these 4 parcels.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Barone. Anyone in the audience wish to speak on this item? I'll close the floor to the public, bring it back to the commissioners. Mr. Matthews.
I asked to pull this one just because, basically, Paul, I was confused as to where it actually was. And Tract D2, how big is that, do you know? Because I couldn't read that.
D2 is 4.21 acres.
Oh, okay. I thought it was smaller than that. All right, I move to approve then.
We have a motion to approve, seconded by Mr. Richard. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion carries. Thank you. Next item is MS 14-07-041, a 24.5 acre parcel into tracts A1, C, D, and E, Ward 7, District 7. The owner is Wesley Dick and others. John E. Bono and Associates is the surveyor. This is in Parish Council District Representative Jacob Groby. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, the reason for the public hearing for this is that one of the parcels is being accessed by a private drive, and 2 parcels do not meet the minimum lot width requirements. The owner is proposing to create 4 tracts from 1 parent parcel and 1 existing parcel of record, which is Tract A, if you refer to your survey attached to your staff report. In order to satisfy the participants involved in the succession of this property, and due to the pre-existing conditions on the properties in question, the owners are seeking a waiver of the road frontage requirement for proposed tracts C and D. And since a private drive would only access 1 parcel, which is going to be Tract E, a driveway is not required to be built to parish standards in accordance to the minimum standards for a private drive of the subdivision ordinance. Therefore, the staff has no objections to the proposed minor subdivision request and the waiver. And since a waiver would be required, a 2/3 majority vote of the full membership of the commission, which is 8 members, is needed in order to approve pursuant to section 40-100, waiver of regulations of subdivision ordinance 499.
Thank you. Anyone in the audience wish to speak on this? I'll close the floor to the public, bring it back to the commissioners. Have it, Mr. Matthews.
Yeah, I've got some questions and I don't know who to ask them of. But
Is Mr. Dick in the audience? Yes, sir. Please come forward and state your name for the record.
Wesley Dick III.
All right. There's who you asked, Mr. Matthews.
thank you. Mr. Dick, it looks like Tract A1 will obviously be accessed off of North Mill Road. Tract C will be accessed through a drive off Barry Todd Road. Tract D and E, it looks like those 2 tracts are going to be accessed by a private drive. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, then, Staff, you indicate that only one lot will be accessed by a private drive, but it appears two lots are being accessed by a
No,
private
actually,
drive.
no, actually, if you look at North Mill Road, you see that little frontage of around 50 feet or so. That actually is part of a lot that has public road frontage, so that doesn't count as a private drive. The private drive will access the rear parcel in the back, which will be E. That roadway that you see there on North Mill Road is actually part of Track D that has public road frontage.
Okay, very hard to pick that up.
Yeah, it is. You have to look at it. So Track D
Okay,
is
which
Track D is the only one's accessed with a private
The,
drive.
the line that says north, 85, 55, 29 west, that's actually the property line of A1? Okay, I see. All right. Then I move to approve.
We have a motion to approve, seconded by, who's second, Mr. Davis? Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, next item is MS 14-07-042, a 60.98 parcel into parcels A through D, Ward 2, District 2. The owner is Lionel Ingram, surveyor is John G. Cummings and Associates. This is in Honorable Dennis Sharp's district. Staff?
Yes, sir. The reason why this request is, requires a public hearing is that one of the parcels is being accessed by a private drive. The owner is proposing to create 4 parcels from one parent parcel. And since a private drive will only provide access to one parcel, which is parcel B, within the minor subdivision, said drive is not required to be built to parish standards pursuant to the regulations ordinance 499. Therefore, the staff has no objection to the proposed minor subdivision request.
Okay, thank you. Is Mr. Ingram in the audience?
Mr. Ingram wanted me to express his reluctance not to be here. He couldn't be here tonight. He's under doctor's care. He requested that if this is a standard minor subdivision request, no waivers are required for this. He asked the board to consider his request tonight in his absence.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Davis?
Yeah, a question for staff. So at the end of Kugel Road, is this where the parcel B entrance for the private drive will be?
That is correct. There's
And-
approximately 30-foot gap between the end where Coogee Road, the public road-of-way, ends, and his parcel will get access with a private drive from that point.
And he just needs to meet the minimum standards for a private drive, correct?
He doesn't have to meet any minimum standards because it's only being
Oh.
accessed by, only one parcel is being accessed with that little private drive there. The rest of the parcels have public road access.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Casabon?
I'll make a motion to approve
We have a motion by
With-
Ms. Casabon,
the waiver. Do we have to
seconded
have the
by
waiver
Mr.
on that?
Lawrence.
No waiver
No waiver
required.
needed, okay.
Mr. Matthews?
Staff, how is he gonna get from the end of Kugel Road to parcel B?
Well, if you indicate, there's a little inset if you look in the top right-hand side of the survey plat that shows that little entrance. He's created a little 35 by 35 foot little box that he'll use to access from the public roadway into parcel B.
Does he have a right-of-way?
It's a private right-of-way, yes. Yes. Yes,
Does
he owns that.
He owns the one that
Yes.
says not a part?
That's right, he owns that one, yes, sir.
Okay, because that wasn't obvious to us at all, that not a part means somebody else owned it.
No, it's just simply not part of the minor subdivision because it's not, it's an existing lot of record. He's not subdividing that parcel, but it is his property.
Okay.
All right, any further discussion? We have a motion and a second, please vote. Motion carries, thank you. Page 2. MS 14-07-044.
I don't have time to talk.
A
right now.
20.101
Another
acre
case
parcel into parcel C through F, Ward 2, District 3. The owners, Varnado and others. The surveyor is John G. Cummings and Associates Incorporated. This is in Honorable James Red Thompson's district. General location, the property located on the west side of Louisiana 1080 and southeast of Phillips Road, northeast of Folsom, Louisiana. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Public hearing is required for this because all 4 of the lots that do not meet the minimum parish road frontage requirements for the A1 zoning district of 300 foot. The owner is proposing to create 4 parcels from 1 parent parcel, and all the proposed parcels do not meet the minimum for lot road frontage requirements of 300 foot, as I just mentioned, is required for the A1 district. The owner has the ability to meet parish code if they were to create 3 lots on the highway as opposed to 4. Therefore, the staff does not support the proposal. And if the commission decides to grant it, a waiver would be required, and a 2/3 majority vote of the full membership of the commission, which is 8 members, is needed in order to approve that waiver.
Thank you. Is anyone here in the audience? Yes, ma'am. Come forward, state your name.
Hi, my name is Deborah Varnado. I'm here to speak on behalf of my family. My 3 sisters, my brother and I are the heirs of Peggy and H.D. Blackwell of Folsom, lifelong residents of Folsom. This property that we're dividing it's been in my family for 75 years. My grandparents bought it in the 1940s and built their house there, and I still live in the house that they built there. My sister lives there, my brother lives there, and my parents' home was there. We're trying to divide it in a way that we feel is fair between the 5 of us, and we've come up with this division. We're not planning on doing anything to the property that's not already there. We're not building any structures, a road, anything. We're just gonna continue to use it like it is now, continue to live on it. 2 of the parcels are for my sister and I who already have houses there. It would just be an extension of our existing parcel. And then the other 2 would be, one would be my parents' home with some acreage around it, and the other is just a piece of land that my sister would own. We realize that it doesn't meet the standards for 300 feet. We've come up with it where a couple of them meet 277, one is 230, and one is around 150. They all have road frontage on Highway 1080, so there would be no problem with actual right-of-ways to the property. And we've lived there for a long time. We're not planning on going anywhere. You know, we just want to continue to live on the land and just change the names on the deed, draw some lines on the property. Instead of one 20-acre piece, it'll be divided among us. So, any questions?
Okay, thank you.
All
Let's
right,
see if
thanks.
there's anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak on this.
Okay.
All right, if not, we're gonna close the floor to the public, bring it back to the commission. Ms. Casabon.
Yes, I've known this family all my life, and they have been there for quite a long time, and they do live on this property, and this is one of the cases that I know that they don't meet the standard, but this is also one of the cases that, this is why we're here looking at it, is that they are dividing it up for their family, even though it doesn't meet our codes, this is, you know, why this body is deciding, and I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Casabon, second by Mr. Williams.
And also, Mr. Chairman, I want to mention that it is zoned A1, and most of the lots exceed that 5-acre minimum. So, you know, they can't subdivide it any further unless they come back to get rezoned, so.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Matthews.
Well, not all of the lots appear to be over 5 acres. You said you've got 4 heirs and you're dividing into 4 parcels? Five heirs and dividing it, but 5 heirs and dividing into,
Come back to the mic.
come up to the mic, please.
There are 5 heirs. My parents also owned an adjoining property that is divided also. It was approved because it met the requirements, so it's already approved. So 2 of the heirs will have their pieces on that property, 3 of us on this 20-acre piece, and then my parents' house is gonna stay into a joint account from all of us. We're gonna all have ownership of that piece. So there's actually gonna be 6 parcels, but 4 on this piece and 2 on a piece that's previously been approved.
But since it's 3 heirs, you all really could divide this into 3 lots.
We could, but then we're gonna be,
Are all 3 of these heirs going to live on these 3 parcels? Or 4
2 of
parcels?
us will, and 1 is not at the current time.
Okay. And it concerns me that, you know, what's going to happen now with the owner, say, of parcel C decides that they want to leave it to their heirs. Are we going to come back here and try to divide that into 2 or 3 pieces too, even though it doesn't meet the code? Since it's 3 people and they could do it, I just think that that's what they really ought to do rather than us abrogating our code.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Willett?
I think they're doing it this way simply because it's the only fair way to divide it among the heirs. And I think that's what they had to come up with.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Please vote.
And that includes the waiver? I didn't hear a motion. Did you say waiver?
We've got, who needs to vote?
Yeah, subject to the waiver.
We're still missing a
I make
vote.
my motion, yes, subject to the waiver.
All right, the motion carries to approve. There's 8 yay and 1 nay. Thank you. All right, next item is MS 1407-045, a 10-acre parcel in the parcels A, B, and C, Ward 5, District 6. The owner is John Haygood. The surveyor is John G. Cummins and Associate. This is in Honorable Richard Tanner's district. Staff?
Mr. Chairman, the reason why this request is being made is that 2 of the parcels are being accessed with a private drive. The owner is proposing to create 3 parcels from 1 parent parcel. And since 2 of the parcels are being accessed by a private drive, said drive must be constructed to a minimum parish standard in accordance with Section 40-045, minimum construction standards for a private drive of subdivision ordinance 499. Furthermore, said private drive needs to be named by the owner prior to the survey being recorded for public record. The staff has no objections to the proposed minor subdivision request.
All right, thank you. Let's see, is anyone in the audience here to speak on this item? Yeah. John Haygood? Good evening, sir.
How are you today? Yes, sir.
All right, do you have anything additionally to tell us?
No, sir, not unless you want to waive the requirements for the road, because the road's already there. It's been there for 14 years, and the road is named and has a 911 name to it.
Okay, Ron, are you aware of it being already named?
No, I'm not aware of it. The survey doesn't show the name, so they just will, if there is a name, we'll just have to add it on to the survey plat.
Okay,
Survey doesn't show it, but I gave you a letter that from the 911 administrator.
Yeah, I'm just saying that the survey needs to show it before we record it.
All right.
okay, all right. Let's see if there's any questions, Ms. Casabon.
Yes, since we're doing 2 of the back lots, I have some concerns about the minimum standard that they did end up selling that, and I know we've had cases in that area that they don't want to maintain it, and they end up wanting the parish to, and it's not to, the parish standards.
That's not
and
an
so on.
issue here.
Well, we don't know that. We don't know the circumstances of what may happen.
Well, I gave him
that you
a-
need-
I gave him a
I'll defer
letter.
to council. I had asked him.
Ms. Casbon, I know that Honeysuckle Road, which is the road that this property fronts, is a very narrow gravel road that the parish maintains. It is so narrow currently that the Public Works Department has actual difficulty getting its vehicles, grading machines on the road in order to do the job properly in maintenance-wise. As I appreciate it, part of the problem with the maintenance and the condition of Honeysuckle Road is actions taken by Mr. Haygood regarding his fence line, which it's my understanding is encroaching into the road right-of-way. Growth coupled with that fencing is making that road narrow. And it's my appreciation that actually adding residential
More
lots
traffic, yeah.
accessed onto this road could present an increased safety situation than what it already exists out there. Now,
May I say
haven't-
something here?
Just a moment.
I haven't had an opportunity to speak to Mr. Haygood about this matter, but, you know, I'm certainly happy to get together with him, discuss what the parish concerns are, and see if those could be rectified
Well,
in
we went
advance of
we
moving
went through
forward
that,
with
sir.
this.
Just a moment, sir.
Also, I'm not sure if what Mr. Haygood had said about his private drive is entirely accurate. Under our subdivision regulations, in order to access these two lots, the right-of-way would have to be established at a width of 35 feet wide.
It is.
With a minimum road width of 20 feet. So, I mean, if that has been confirmed by engineering and development, that's fine, and it's merely a road naming issue,
Yeah.
then that's an issue, not an issue. If the private drive right-of-way is already established, or isn't established rather, then I think that's something that would also need to be verified before moving forward with this case as well.
Well, I'm gonna make a motion due to the safety and us finding out it's not on the plat. I'm gonna make a motion that we postpone this until the staff or engineering can verify that, as you said, there is a road there, but it's not shown, and also the fact that I don't want to add any more traffic, make two more lots if people can't access it, you know, off of Honeysuckle. So there seems to be a problem with the accessing to the back. So I'm
There's-
going to make a motion to postpone, or
Well, here's the situation.
we're going to talk, I'm making a motion to postpone it, which means table, and let you get together with the staff, or let the engineers go out and check out these other roads and make sure that it's not a safety issue of people being able, and if the parish to maintain it needs to be able to get their equipment in there. So that's,
We have a motion by Ms. Casabon to postpone till at least next month's meeting. We have a second by Mr. Willie.
and let the engineers check it out as far as the width and whatever, and be able to report to us at the next meeting.
Mr.
Well,
Chairman, does that cut
will I
off
get a
all
chance to-
discussion?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Okay. All right, we have a motion to table and a second. Please vote. Motion carries. Thank you. Please get with staff, and they'll come out.
Well, when do I have the opportunity to explain what y'all just
Next
went
month.
through? Next month.
Yes. Okay.
We'll have more facts from our
Yeah.
engineering that
Our
will be
le- our
able to
legal ca-
verify what you're
Well,
saying.
what I wanted to say is that my family lives there at the moment, and they're using the public.
Sir?
Mr. Chairman, call for order.
All right. Yep. All right, page 2, revocation, REV 14-07-001. Revocation of a portion of Powerline Road located on the north side of Louisiana Highway 40, north northwest of Bush, Louisiana, Ward 5, District 5. Applicant is James P. Stanoff. The surveyor is John E. Bono and Associates. It's Honorable Richard Tanner's district. This was postponed from the July 8th meeting. Staff?
Hey, Mr. Chairman, the applicant, if you need to refer to the survey plat attached for this. The applicant wishes to revoke a 40-foot wide strip of Powerline Road that traverses through 4 of the owner's 5 parcels. If you look at the parcels, you'll see there's a roughly two 2-acre tracts, a 14-acre tract, a 26-acre tract, and then remaining bulk of the 77-acre tract that fronts on Louisiana Highway 40. He owns the parcels that I just mentioned. The parish is concerned due to the fact that if we were to revoke this road, it would technically deny public road access to 2 of the parcels, which would be the 14.5 and the 2.05 acre tract, and would also open the parish up to potential liability and litigation issues if the applicant were to ever sell any of these parcels. Additionally, the Louisiana Revised Statutes governing the revocation movement of property state that roadways should only be revoked if they serve no useful public purpose. We think that these parcels deserve to be continued to be accessed by a public roadway. Furthermore, our legal department has reviewed this proposal and has concurred with staff that this revocation request should not be approved based on legal concerns and the establishment of poor precedent. And again, you can see attached a copy of the email from our legal department. Therefore, in order to nullify any potential liability to the parish, the staff recommends that the applicant agree to one of the following two options, whereby we can then support the revocation request. Option one would be to agree to participate in the parish's minor subdivision process, whereby all of the applicant's parcels would be depicted on one certified survey plat, and the 3 lots in question would be accessed with a private drive that would be approved and constructed to parish standards. The second option would be the applicant would agree to simply amend his deed and title to the properties in question that have parcel access to a public right-of-way. The 26-acre tract, if you look at the survey, does have access to a public roadway to the north, although it's not depicted on the survey. And of course, the 77-acre tract to the south has access on Louisiana Highway 40. Excuse me. They can take those 3 parcels, which is the 14-acre and the 2 2-acre tracts, and they can assimilate them into either one of those principal parcels, the 26-acre or the 77-acre parcel, thereby providing public road access for said parcels, and then the road could be revoked. We've discussed that at great detail and length with the clients, with the attorney representing the client and the applicant. That was the reason why we had it tabled. We were trying to work out some solution. Obviously, we couldn't come to accords on that. So, again, the staff will not support this unless they agree to one of options A or B.
Okay, thank you. Is anyone in the audience? Yes, ma'am. Can you just come forward and state your name?
My name is Martha Jumanville. I'm a local attorney. Everyone calls me Jinx. I did bring some separate surveys if there's any confusion about this, but I do represent James Stoynoff, who is here in the audience. He acquired these parcels all in dribs and drabs as they became available. So we have the 77-acre parcel, which has frontage on Highway 40. We have the 26-acre parcel, which, as Ron says, does not show it, but I did come today with a complete survey showing that that has access on Jenkins Cemetery Road. These parcels in the center were separately owned, and actually Powerline Road does not traverse all of those parcels. It traverses the 77-acre parcel, it traverses the 14.5, and then it terminates in the 26. But he bought all of these parcels separately, so our goal is to keep the 26-acre parcel separate, which has its own access, the 77-acre parcel separate. And with regard to the 14, the 2, and the 2, that actually is his home site. And we have no objection to, and have actually already prepared, which I did bring a copy today, what Ron calls an assimilation document or an amendment to the deed. So we have offered we're not looking to increase the density, we're looking to combine these parcels. So we have already prepared, and I do have copies of it if you want to see it, of the 14.5 acre, the 2 acre, and the 2.05 acre tracts into one, which would be 18.5 acres, and record that at the courthouse. And part of our document says that if he were to ever attempt to sell any part of that, he understands that he would have to come back for approval for any type of minor subdivision. We're looking to make, we want to end up with the 2 parcels that he already has that has road frontage, and then combine the other 3 into one larger parcel. And to do that by what Ron calls the deed amendment or assimilation document. Here's the rub, as I perceive it, and I'm sure that Ron will correct me if he has a different opinion. Mr. Stoynoff really doesn't want, he would like to keep these other parcels separate. He doesn't want to combine those into another parcel right now. So what we were left with would be an 18.5 acre parcel serviced by, assuming that the revocation is approved, serviced by a private road, which is actually allowed, as you know, under the minor subdivision ordinance. And Ron points out that the minor subdivision ordinance requires 2 parcels. So what that means is a lot of surveying expense for Mr. Stoynoff to have to go survey. So what Ron is saying is, you know, I think it'll be okay as long as you present us a minor subdivision for 2 of the parcels. So either we have to survey the 77-acre parcel, which that's probably going to be $5,000 or $6,000 at least to survey, or the 25-acre parcel, which isn't going to change at all. Neither of these will change at all. And then our second parcel would be the 18.5-acre parcel that could be serviced by the private drive. And so it's really, we don't object to doing that except for the expense. And so we have contacted, and I have spoken with Mr. Tanner, and my client has spoken with Mr. Tanner. And, you know, our position is that we are offering to decrease the density by making 1 parcel out of those 3 parcels, have them serviced by the private road. I mean, that's our position, because to me, and I do understand the letter of the law versus maybe the spirit of the law, but I don't see any purpose in having the 25 acres resurveyed to be the second parcel, or the 77 acres to be the second parcel. We already have a survey that combines the 14.5, the 2, and the 2, which I did bring copies of today, and I'm not sure if I've sent Ron copies of that, but we have that survey. So that is our position, is that we want to leave with a revoked street, and we want to combine these interior parcels, so we will only have 1 parcel serviced by a private road that apparently is up to standard because it has been, maintained by the parish. In fact, recently has been maintained by them. And really the reason for the revocation. So in other words, if Ron's objection is that Mr. Stoynoff plans to sell some of these, he will not be able to do that with the assimilation deed that we have prepared, which I'm happy to provide you copies of. We're restricting that property such that we've combined them all into one with the specific acts and the specific surveys, and he would specifically agree and understand. No title examiner or notary is going to let them sell any of these with this act being of record. So that is our position in a nutshell. I feel like we're caught in a technicality, really, that in order to have this 1 parcel serviced by a private road, Ron says we need, which may be exactly the letter of the law, that we need to do a minor subdivision. But to do the minor subdivision, you have to have 2 parcels, which throws us into having to survey these other pieces. And the reason for the revocation, I believe it does say that in the staff comments, this road really just dead ends in his property, and this is all heavily wooded property except immediately around his home site. He does have 4-wheelers coming in there. He's got them riding all over it. He's got people coming down there and dumping. So he wants to be able to secure the property, and he is the only owner. So, and I think Ron will agree with this. If you look technically at all of the requirements for revocation, we've met all of those. There was one thing that Ron said he voiced concern about, which was a CLECO servitude that was not shown on the survey. CLECO, all the utilities, of course, have granted their approvals to this, and we have already executed a CLECO servitude with a recorded map attached. That's been done, I think, back in April or May, but we certainly don't mind adding the CLECO servitude, which follows, I'm saying CLECO, AT&T, I'm sorry, AT&T servitude goes along the road. So we've already have a separate servitude that we've granted to them. It's all been recorded. We don't mind adding that. But again, the minor subdivision, I think, basically, when you think of that, you're thinking of, I'm going from bigger to smaller, and we're really doing the opposite, and we're offering to do that voluntarily. Mr. Stoynoff is here. Would you like to make any comments? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, again, we've been working with Ms. Jumonville for a while on this, and again, just try to clarify this 14.5 acre tract, the 2.0 acre tract, and the 2.5 acre tract. She's talking about doing an assimilation agreement where basically those become 1 parcel. But by doing that, if we revoke the road, we're still denying public road access to that parcel. She wants to go ahead and do that in favor of creating a private servitude and rely on the owner to maintain and to restrict that property and to regulate that right-of-way for access purposes. We just maintain that the law says under statute RS 48701, and I'll quote that or paraphrase it, it says that the governing authority Parish government authorities may revoke and set aside the dedication of all roads, streets, and alleyways laid out and dedicated to public use within their respective limits when the roads, streets, and alleyways have been abandoned or are no longer needed for public use. We state that these lots as independent parcels currently have public road access. Yes, they're currently owned by this gentleman, but right now they are independent parcels that are accessed with a public roadway, and to deny that public roadway through a revocation process could create potential litigation issues with the parish if he sells them down the line. That's all we're saying.
But we would restrict that with this act, which I have 16 copies of a little packet I brought if y'all want to see this.
Let me stop you right there. We have a document that our attorney, Ms. Hinton, prepared. And personally, I think if we were to vote to allow the revocation without her seeing your assimilation document, I think we would maybe have a problem with that.
I think she has seen it.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Matthews?
there appears to be a great deal of things going on that have not passed to our planning department. I have some questions about what they're doing, and I think with what Ms. Jumonville has just said, we don't have that information before us other than what she has said. I'd like to move to postpone this so they can either get with the parish planning department and the parish attorney and see if there's a way that this can be worked out, and if it can't, then they'll come back to us next month and staff will tell us that this agreement to combine all three of these acres, these parcels, does not satisfy the parish's requirements, and we will have to make a decision then. But right now, I don't think we have enough information, and I'd move to postpone.
Before we get a second, can I ask the question?
Yes.
I guess of staff, I don't know, I just want to make sure that I'm clear in my mind. Okay, he owns the 77.3 acres,
Yes.
and we're saying there is a public road on that. I am
Yes.
very familiar with this area, and I would have more legal concern that if this is public road and the parish owns it, and I do know what goes on, the dumping and it's just, it's crazy. It's like a freeway with these off-road, vehicles and stuff running on that property. Would the parish be liable, just as this gentleman that owns the property is?
That's his concern, and for
I
himself,
know, but
because
I'm
they
asking
use your
staff, I'm
road.
asking legal, or come back next time,
All right.
being able to
Yeah,
explain some of this stuff to us.
These are all the questions.
I
I had
un-
some of the same concerns,
Yeah.
Martha.
Okay.
And these are the things that I think the parish legal, and Ms. Jumonville need to get together and answer some of those questions, if they can be answered. And I'm
Right.
not saying they can.
I don't
I'm
think-
not sure
Well,
that they
it's
can.
I don't think we're gonna settle this tonight, and I agree with what you're saying, Martha. We have a motion,
Second.
to postpone till next month's meeting, and I heard a second from Mr. Davis, okay? That ceased discussion, so I need to have a vote. Motion carries to postpone till next month, okay?
Will Mr. Keller be able to give us the questions that, I'm not really clear what the questions are.
Would-
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you.
And Ron, if you
Yeah,
need
well-
me to participate in the meetings, let me know. Okay.
Okay. All right, preliminary subdivision review, SD 08-06-008, P as in Paul, B as in boy, P as in Paul, Tammany Business Park, Ward 7 and 9, District 7 and 9, developer owner is Redco, Kelly McHugh and Associates is the engineer. This is in Honorable Jake Groby and Steve Stefan, 6th District staff.
The preliminary plans and hydrologic study have been reviewed by this office and an inspection was made of the site. It is recommended that the preliminary submittal be approved, subject to the following. Need 20-foot sewer servitude between lots 3 and 4 on subdivision plat. Need ditch invert elevations on sheet 4 at lot 18 corners. Some revisions have been made as of today, August 12, 2014. I'll go through that. It's going to be C, D, and E. The traffic impact analysis for the development has been reviewed. There are several minor revisions that need to be addressed, and these changes have already been discussed with the engineer. It is not anticipated that these changes will alter the recommendations of the report. The report shows that no additional improvements above and beyond what was required for Tammany Phase 1 will be required, except for the construction of a fifth entrance off LA 434 for this portion of the development, which will consist of right and left turn lanes from LA 434 into the development, as well as exclusive right and left turn lanes out of the development at this additional driveway. The required improvements identified in the traffic study for Tammany Phase 1 are not only local improvements prompted by the development, but also global improvements which are needed with or without the development due to area growth. The traffic consultant is working closely with the Department of Engineering to determine which improvements will be responsibility of the developer and which improvements will be handled by the parish. Global improvements for which mandatory impact fees will be used. At a minimum, all improvements need to be at entrances to the development are the sole responsibility of the developer, including all right-of-way costs. All improvements which are deemed local will be required in addition to the mandatory impact fees for the development. The impact fees will be used towards the global improvements. All required improvements were listed at tentative approval of Tammany, formerly University Square, in June 2008 and will take place as phases of the development are occupied. A DOTD driveway permit is required. All turn lanes as identified in the TIA shall conform to DOTD standards and requirements, including but not limited to required storage length. Any other requirements that are put in place by DOTD as part of the driveway permit process shall also be the sole responsibility of the developer. A funded maintenance obligation in the amount of $15,000 is required in accordance with subdivision ordinance number 499, section 40.061.08, funded letters of credit for existing parish roads to ensure the repair of any damage to the parish roads resulting from construction activity in the connection with the subdivision. Provision Landing and Tammany Way are currently under construction and are to be dedicated to the parish. Therefore, any damage to these roadways resulting from the construction activity in connection with Tammany Business Park will be covered by this maintenance obligation. Mandatory developmental fees will be required at the final submittal in accordance with ordinance number 04-0990, since no public hearing was held prior to January 1st, 2005. Department of Environmental Services has comments.
Plans and specifications for the construction of the project's water distribution lines and sewage collection lines have not yet been approved by the Department of Health and Hospitals as required. No work order will be issued until the plans and specifications are approved by DHH. Development has no comments.
Thank you. Mr. Shane.
Thank you, Chairman Doherty and Honorable Commission. Jeff Shane of the Jones Fussell Law Firm. I have the pleasure of representing Weyerhaeuser Real Estate Development Company, which is the owner and developer of Tammany that you are familiar with, and we have visited with you before. Tonight, the specific issue is, of course, seeking preliminary subdivision approval for the Tammany Business Park, which I'm sure all of you can see on the plat that's in your packet. With regard to the comments made by the Department of Engineering, and in particular, items 2A and B, those items have already been completed and will be soon submitted to your staff for review. All other comments, both from the Department of Engineering as well as the Department of Environmental Services, we think are accurate, and we are in full accord with any obligations that are suggested to be imposed on the developer. This is an interesting project. It's not one that you see every day as it relates to the infrastructure and how it will be implemented, the timeline, et cetera. But we appreciate the fact that the parish, both administration, certainly the development department, engineering department, and others have worked very closely with us, because they really are stakeholders of sort, as you, if you will, as it relates to the development, because the infrastructure that we'll be putting in is needed by the parish as well. But long story short, we believe this report is accurate, and again, we certainly stipulate that we are in full accord with the comments and requirements made therein. If any of you have any questions, I'll be glad to address them at the right time.
Thank you, Mr. Shane. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak on this? I'll close the floor to the public, bring it back to the commissioners. Mr. Matthews.
I think Mr. Davis was first.
Pardon?
I think Mr. Davis was first.
Jimmy?
Yeah, Mr. Shane.
Yes, sir.
Once complete, once the whole PUD is complete, the majority of the water that will drain off of this complex will be in Big Branch Bayou and Lacombe Bayou? Because right now, it looks like that's the only two waterways to get to the lake. Is that
Well,
correct?
you have some water that will go south and west. Right. and you
I'm
have
just
some-
wondering, out of point of reference.
Yes, so.
Which one's gonna
You
have
said
the
the
majority
entire
of the water?
The entire PUD.
Right, the
Really,
entire-
the best answer is the water will be allocated in a variety of directions, obviously ultimately going south.
Right.
And we have not done the specific hydrology for each component of the PUD.
But for this one here,
For this one here, most of the water will be, I'm going to turn to Mr. Zemmel. It's going to run on the east side of 434. It's going to go south, and it's going to go under 434 into the Parish Regional Detention Facility.
okay, thank you.
Mr. Matthews?
Yeah, Jeff, I'm looking at the drainage plat here, and on lots 1 through 6 rather, I'm sorry, 1 through 6, the arrows go both north and south. The south arrows indicate, I guess, drainage to the rear of these properties. I don't know where it is going to go after it gets to the end of the property. It looks like there's a road there. Is it gonna go under the road or across the road, whatever, to get to these detention ponds?
The area behind that bank of lots is all wetlands, so that water will, where you see those arrows, it will get into those wetlands. And
Okay,
it will,
but isn't that a road here?
all the way to the north.
No, all the way to the south.
Which lots are you referring to?
Lots 1 through 6, and they show some ponds, and it looks like it's a continuation of this road. Isn't this a road here?
No, there's no roads. No, that's not.
There's no road. No. You asked if there's a road to the south?
Yeah, there is a road.
Does it look like a road to you?
And it's a ditch, so it'll drain.
The road is south of the wetlands area.
Yeah, the wetlands are here.
Yeah, Tammany Way.
Yeah, that's Tammany Way right there.
Okay,
And there's,
so where-
there's gonna
where
be
do-
a ditch on the north side of the road.
This is Frank Zimmer
I'm
of
Frank.
Richard C. Lambert and Associates, who's
Okay.
obviously our drainage engineer.
Okay, good.
So
Just the guy I
yes,
need to see.
on the north side of the road, there'll be a regular roadside ditch.
Okay,
On the south, it'll be the linear detention ponds. That's Tammany Way, which will be constructed as part of Phase 1 under the previous submittal.
okay. Where does the water from that ditch go? The water drains off of lots 1 through 6.
It will
into that
drain-
ditch, and then,
It'll go into the ditch, into the linear detention pond, then
how
head.
does it cross Tammany Way?
He's gonna
Yeah.
finish.
Oh, okay, I'm
It'll
sorry.
cross using culverts like any other
Okay.
crossing, any other roadway crossing of drainage.
It doesn't show that, and was my
That's
concern.
because this was actually, this portion of Tammany Way was designed in the previous phase of Tammany that was passed a few months ago.
I understand that, but I don't have that old map, and to see where there are or not culverts. That was
Okay.
my question. There are culverts on Tammany Way for that water to go. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Likewise, on the north side of lots 1 through 6, well, lots 1, 2, and 3, you see the drainage arrows, and they go, and again, to another roadway. I assume that there must be, hopefully, culverts under that roadway?
Yes, you have already granted preliminary subdivision approval for that, I guess we'll call it network or skeleton of roads.
Right.
And they do include the culverts to handle the disposal of the water off each lot.
don't have the benefit of having kept those
Well,
maps.
that's why your staff, though,
Yeah.
recommended approval, because they know that that approval and requirement is already in place with the work
Well,
order.
but we're the ones granting the approval, and we need to know it. Okay? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
That answers my questions.
Let me keep it.
All right.
Sounds like I might need it.
Any further discussion by any of the commissioners? Any questions?
No.
No.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mr. Davis to approve. We have a second by Mr. Matthews. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next item is SD 11-11-005, Piers and Paul 3, Coke Hill Phase 3, Ward 1, District 4. Developer owner is McEnt LLC. Engineers Kelly McEwen Associates. This is in Honorable Reed Falconer's district. Staff?
The preliminary plans and hydrologic study have been reviewed by this office and an inspection was made of the site. It is recommended that preliminary submittal be approved, subject to the following. The developer's engineer has requested a waiver of detention requirements in accordance with ordinance number 11-2426. The Department of Engineering has reviewed their request and approved the proposed waiver. Therefore, drainage fee in lieu of detention is as follows. 25.72 acres at $2,000 an acre would give a total of $51,440, which is due before work order is issued. However, the developer's engineer has requested a letter, by letter dated August 1st, 2014, it's attached, that only developable land be used in the calculations for drainage as follows. 21.34 acres at $2,000 an acre, which a total at $42,680. It is Department of Engineering's interpretation of the ordinance that the entire footprint of the subdivision is to be used in the calculation of fee in lieu of detention based upon the fact that detention is based upon 25% reduction of the entire footprint of the subdivision. This waiver would need a 2/3 majority vote as well, so 8 approvals. Label proposed inverts of swell ditch at each property corner for driveway elevation determination. No maintenance obligation is required since this is a private subdivision extension. Mandatory developmental fees will be required at final submittal in accordance with ordinance number 04-0990, since no public hearing was held prior to January 1st, 2005. Department of Environmental Services has comments.
Plans and specifications for the construction of the project's water distribution lines and sewer collection lines have not yet been approved by the Department of Health and Hospitals as required. No work order will be issued until the submitted plans and specifications are approved by DHH. Development has no comments.
Thank you. Mr. McHugh.
Yes, the staff comments, I'd only request the waiver on the fees. I think, haven't been up here in a few months, but the last time I was up here, it was sort of the same battle on another development. Paying for detention on green space, and again, you're penalizing the developers by doing that. Some of them more than others, but if they, you make them take a green space and then have to put detention on something that really isn't going to increase drainage or pay an extra fee, he'll want to make it more lots and not get green space. So I think the last time we made that, yeah, we're going to look at changing the ordinance, but at this point, our last one was a pass subject to that request.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak on this item? I'll close the floor to the public, bring it back to the commissioners. Pogue.
Yes, I'd like to get our legal department involved in this a little bit. This is, as Mr. McHugh says, this is not the first time this has come up.
Right.
There either is or isn't a rule. And whatever the rule is, the developer should know the rule on the front end.
Mark, would
And,
you like
and
to?
I would like, as commissioners, we need to know what the rule is in order to pass a sound judgment.
Okay.
So what is a rule?
Well, the simple answer is the rule is currently, as it is expressed in the applicable ordinance, allowing for the ability to pay a drainage fee in lieu of providing the detention. But of course, there are circumstances where the question of, okay, how is that calculation made? And how much, and how is the fee calculated as a result? And that is the kind of thing that we haven't expressly addressed yet as far as the variances. You know, the Department of Engineering is charged with doing an evaluation and determining the appropriate fee. Developers, I understand, are saying, okay, but there are circumstances in certain developments where maybe the calculation is not applicable. We haven't addressed that yet. So I think, and when I say we, I think as far as clarifying the regulations to a point of trying to address as many different scenarios as possible. So I think in the meantime, the appropriate thing for this body to do is to address the matter according to the determination made by staff and its evaluation under the ordinance. And to the extent that the developer may disagree with that, they may bring it to the parish council to address.
As an appeal.
Correct.
Okay, does that answer your question? Yep. Well, I got two more down here, Todd.
Understand.
Mr. Davis?
Yes, Mr. McHugh. What's the main reason you don't want to put any more retention in this area?
It backs up to the Madisonville swamps and the lake, and detention would be adverse to anything.
Right, okay, and that would be your future phase, which you have listed on the map, it's just south of Elise Lane, which is flood zone A10, is that why? Because it's gonna drain towards that area anyway?
No, there's no future phase south of Elise Lane.
Oh, okay.
Oh, there's this over here to the right, that's the last future phase that comes down here, there's 24 lots over here.
Okay, but wouldn't that influence, if you don't have it, is that gonna influence the individuals that are living in that area now? Or, what I'm saying is, if you're not gonna build the retention, which is a requirement, and you're asking for the fee, all I see here is you got flood zone A10 directly below the flood zone C, which is the area you're developing, correct?
Yeah, the detention, the project that you're looking at now, Christian Court, goes straight south to the swamp and to the lake.
Right.
The stuff to the right is not impacted at all by it. Okay,
won't be
it will do
affected
the
by
same thing. It will not be impacted at all by
so-
Christian Court.
So it'll just flow,
It'll just float,
direct-
same
direct to
thing,
the
same
swamp
swamp
area.
and to the lake.
Okay.
The
Okay, so
Lake
you-
Pontchartrain Basin, which is,
And so so realistically, and if that's what the planning department also sees, the only question you have here is whether or not you're basing it on 21.34 acres or the 25.72 acres, correct?
that's exactly right.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll just say the last time that was handled exactly that way, that Raven was requested, the last two or three. And I don't know who else had it, but I know that the last two or three, we've done it that way. Because, and the staff had the same comment that y'all were gonna get together and look at it. Might have been 8 months or 10 months ago. And, you know, nobody asked me, but it didn't get looked at, so.
Yeah. Mr. Matthews?
Well, this is obviously a continuing problem, and as Pug said, it is not fair to the developer to have to come to our commission not knowing whether they're gonna have to pay a fee or not. Or not knowing what the fee is going to be charged on, how many acres. That's not a way for the developers to do business. Most business people like to do business where the rules are known and they know whether they want to go forward with something, and it's easy to determine it. We've put the developers in a bad position, although our staff reads the rule and they think that they are 100% correct. I tend to agree with them that the rule says what it does. We can waive the rules, but that really doesn't get us to where we want to be. I think the proper thing for us to do is not waive this rule and maybe force the staff legal, the council, or whoever it is, to come up with a decision as to how we're going to handle this going forward. And that way, developers will know one way or another, whether it's right or wrong, whether it is on the entire development or only part of the development. I don't care, but we need to have a decision. And I would move to concur with the staff.
We have a motion by Mr. Matthews to concur with staff. Do I hear a second? Second by Mr. Randolph. Okay, Todd?
I'm going to take a different position. I think that the ordinance is not clear. If it was clear, we wouldn't be having this discussion. In the event that it's not clear, we're making an administrative determination or interpretation, and I don't think that's fair either. So I agree we need to force the issue. I think we ought to force the issue by agreeing with Mr. McHugh and having the staff and our council bring this up as it should have several months ago. So I move that we actually approve it with Mr. McHugh's interpretation.
Well, we have a motion and a second to concur with staff.
We have to deal with the first motion first.
We have to deal with the first motion.
Okay? Jimmy?
I'd like to make a suggestion. Obviously, if we approve the way it is with the planning department, Mr. McHugh can go ahead and go to the council and fight against it. And that may be enough to go ahead and rectify the situation if you can get the council to act on this. Just an idea.
But apparently they haven't acted before on it when this came up either. So,
Well,
I mean,
again,
Well,
that's
I
why
don't
you keep
remember-
pressing things.
That's
don't
what
remember,
happened the
Martha, but-
last time. We approved the reduction in the amount to the developer, and I think one of the developers we just did that with was Mr. McHugh. Nothing happened. If we look to the past to predict the future, which is what you can do, by siding with the developer in this case and granting him the reduction in the fee, we will do exactly what we did last time. And isn't it crazy where you continue to do the same thing over and over and expect a different outcome?
well, maybe they'll
why do we continue
observe
to do the
that we're
same thing
here,
over and over
make a decision.
and expect a different outcome? I think if we do something different, maybe we can expect a different outcome. And that brings Mr. McHugh in the sad position of him going to the council and saying, you guys need to do something because I've had to pay this extra amount that I don't think is correct, and he may be right. But to continue to do what we've done 1, 2, 3, or 4 times, and I don't remember how many times we've done it, but we've done it more than once, and the outcome was nothing. And again, to continue to do that and expect somehow the council is going to do something different, I think that's the absolute
But
definition of
again,
crazy.
we're not here to decide what the council is gonna do. It's what I think is correct. I think his calculations are correct, and that's
that's
why I
not-
understand.
Well,
Well, I mean, that he
based on
should-
what staff has said and based on what Mike had indicated, it's clear what it says, and Mr. McHugh is wrong. So I concur with Bill that this thing needs to go to the council, and Mr. McHugh needs to appeal it to the council and let them override the commission at this point.
I have a point of
Can I say
clarification.
one?
Is it clear?
It's,
Yeah.
I think it is.
can I say something?
Council thinks it is.
Yes. Mr. McHugh.
Mike?
The past 2 phases of this development, you've done this. So to expect that I come before you on a third and you not do it, that's what Bill's talking about. That's insanity. I mean, that's what I thought we would have done, because it's done in every other phase in this development. So where's the precedent that was set? So now it's not gonna be done?
Mike?
You know, and I know
And the
that-
engineering staff signed off on it previously. I got a letter from Earl saying no objection for phase 1.
Well, we presented it to the planning commission and y'all voted upon it.
Yeah, but
it's
I
not
do
our-
have the first phase, Jeremy, before you were here. I've got that from Earl. They have no objection to this.
And I think that that's what I have, you know, these cases do not come up regularly, and sometimes they deal with drainage, sometimes they deal with green space. In this particular case, and I believe that I have made prior statements to this effect, the engineering department is going to follow the terms of the ordinance in determining what the appropriate calculation is. If the developer wants to represent something other than that, I believe I have stated in the past that the commission does have the ability to make a determination based upon what is presented to it and make a final decision. I believe that's consistent with what I've said in the past. So if what Mr. McHugh, and forgive me, Kelly, you know, these cases kind of jumble together over time, if what Mr. McHugh is saying is that, you know, for this same development, I've come and made the same proposals and the commission has acted in this certain way, then yes, I mean, it would be appropriate for the commission to continue doing so, provided Mr. McHugh is able to provide the similar data, the similar reasons for why this particular development may warrant a special consideration outside of the general guidelines that staff has to follow within the ordinance.
And then make those written requests every time, and I have for the last two phases. But let me just make one comment to Mr. Matthews. To try to change an ordinance with the parish, we worked really closely with Marty Gould on one ordinance that was passed. It took 3 years to get a minor thing. They passed the ordinance and went to 5-year bonds, which you cannot get a 5-year bond. No one thought about that. So they kind of, well, let's do something else, but just to get more reasonable, it was 3 years. So to push this and say, well, I'm going to go push the council to make this happen.
But Kelly,
You won't be.
we'll stop you right there. All it takes for the council to change this ordinance or add some additional verbiage into it is an introduction 1 month and then vote to approve the following month. That's a 2-month thing. There's no reason for it to take 3 years, 5 years, or 6 years, or anything else. Okay?
Well, I agree, but I'm just saying for the practical experience, when there have been things on the ordinance and we've tried to change, there has not been anything that they've looked at and done that in a responsible time for us. So,
But Kelly, otherwise, you're coming to us every time, not just you, every developer that may have a similar situation is coming to us, more or less hat in hand, not having any idea what we're going to do. We have in the past done what you said for this development, but that doesn't mean we're going to do it for this phase, and it doesn't mean we're going to do it for the next developer. I would think you as a developer and any businessman, when they operate in any community, wants to know what the rules are. How can you determine what you're planning to do if you don't know how much you're going to have to pay? You're guessing. You think, well, they'll probably do this. Wouldn't it be better for you to know what we're going to do because this is what the council has said, this is what it means?
I would love that have happened, and it's the same discussion we had 8 or 10 months ago.
Yes.
But they didn't do it, so.
Well, but.
Are you going to penalize, and
Well,
now,
but-
it's
but-
still not going to get done.
Well,
I'll still have to pay the fee.
Maybe it's not, Kelly.
I'll have to build the subdivision before they make a decision, and I'll have to pay the fee.
Well,
So you're putting it on me.
If this does not get the 8 votes, okay, then you will have to appeal it to the council at that point in time. Pug?
Let's make sure we do this too. Whichever way we vote, for the council to overturn us, in other words, if we vote to deny it, what Mr. McHugh is asking for the council to overturn it, it takes what?
I think it's 3/5. 3/5 majority.
It's 2/3.
That's what I'm saying.
I don't think-
It's not just a simple majority.
Look,
Not us, the council.
let me say this. First off, if you do this to me, I'm not going to go to the council to do this because I know it's not going to get done. You're just going to collect the money on me. I'd rather you table me and let somebody else work this out because I'm not going to get it done through the 14 members. I can tell you that. I've attempted that on other ordinances to no avail, and I'm not going to beat my head against the wall. I've come to y'all because y'all have been reasonable in the past about this, and now you're going to throw me back in that? No.
Okay.
I'll just cough up the money. I don't want to. I don't think it's
No, and
fair.
I understand that, and I think every
I think we're
commissioner up
looking
here.
at, we need to be consistent.
We have a
Yeah,
couple
Mr.
motions.
Chairman.
Call the question.
Yep.
There's a motion and a second.
Repeat,
We have a motion on the floor
repeat the motion.
Yes.
to not approve,
Concur with staff.
concur with staff on their comments.
What you're essentially doing is you're making a motion to approve without the waiver. That's what you're,
That's
that's what you're
correct.
doing. So,
That's
so
correct.
you only need a simple majority vote to pass that.
Right. Okay?
Right, staff just is
We,
allowing to approve the in fee in lieu of. We just presented what was given to us and let y'all vote on that. Just our interpretation, we're not agreeing with it, we're just saying that's our interpretation. So we presented the letter that Kelly gave to, and let y'all decide that, not hang it on the staff, actually.
Okay,
Put it
all
on
right.
y'all.
we have, Dave, okay. Dave, you have your,
Yes, point of clarification, with the question as stated for the motion and the second, is that the motion is that we concur with staff's recommendation.
that's correct.
Staff's recommendation being,
The waiver.
pardon me,
The waiver, in fee in lieu of. The fee in lieu of detention is what our recommendation is.
The calculation being on the entire.
Right. And we're
Right, the
presenting
51
our
the
interpretation and then allowing
51,000
y'all to go.
the $51,440 fee,
That's correct.
That's our interpretation.
as compared to the $42,680 fee.
Right.
So again, the motion, if we are in favor of the motion, in essence, we are stating that we feel the $51,440 fee is appropriate for this particular plan.
Okay. Now, I
If-
heard Mr. McHugh also, suggest that this be postponed till next month, and some of us, or our attorney, get with the council and see if we can get this thing moving to be corrected, so that we
If-
don't have this in the future.
If it were to be, then the motion would have to be withdrawn, the second would have to be withdrawn by those proposing.
Okay? All right. Who,
Can we postpone even though there's a motion on the floor?
But we would have to withdraw,
yeah,
Surely we can have a motion to postpone,
Yeah,
even
but
though
the-
there's a motion on the floor.
but the motion has to be withdrawn.
I didn't think this would happen.
Um,
I'm done.
Mike,
Mike?
I'll defer to council.
Even when a motion is on the floor to take some action other than tabling or postponing, I'm using the terms interchangeably, and then a motion and a second on a table or postponement is received, then that trumps the prior motion and all discussion ceases.
At that
And a
point.
vote on that matter.
We vote on that. If that is passed, then it's postponed. If it is not, it goes back to the other motion for discussion.
That's
Well,
correct.
the other motion and second is.
That's
for-
correct, but let me be clear, the chairman still has to recognize a person before they can voice a motion to postpone. They can't just yell out, motion to table.
Right.
They have to be recognized by the chair before it's considered a valid motion.
Okay, well, I haven't heard that, but I heard Mr. McHugh ask this commission to postpone it till next month.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to be recognized.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to postpone.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Matthews to postpone, second by Mr. Randolph. There's no discussion on this to postpone, so please vote. If you voted, you're gonna have to re-vote. All right, we got 7. Who's not voting?
What was the result?
We had,
It's not showing.
we were having a problem with the computer.
Take a hand.
It's a conspiracy.
Take a hand vote.
All right, please re-vote.
Is it clear?
We got a motion to postpone, and right now I've got 4 votes. I need 4 more, or 5 more votes. I've got 9. The motion to postpone fails, so we go back to the original motion.
Do it, Todd.
The original motion is on the floor to approve according to staff's.
Recommendation.
Yes.
Correct.
That's correct.
The original motion is to staff, which would be 51,440 as compared to the 42,680.
Okay. Mike wishes to,
And I just want to make this statement in an effort to assist the commission, you know, and if I didn't state it more clearly earlier, I apologize, but the ordinance that engineering follows states clearly that the entire acreage of the development shall be used for calculation of the drainage fee due, okay? Now, as Mr. McHugh has pointed out, in this and in other matters coming before this commission when circumstances dictate, in other phases of this development and other developments, when circumstances have indicated, this commission has accepted a proposed revised calculation or acreage for calculation purposes. Mr. McHugh has previously stated that that revised calculation has been utilized in prior phases of this development, so I would suggest if it's the commission's wish, it could continue that precedent. However, if the commission also wishes or decides that regardless of the request, the circumstances as they see it necessitate the application of the regulation as it is written, that would also be appropriate. But I just want to make that as clear as I can if any of you were thinking about it as far as what the appropriate action for the commission would be.
okay, thank you. At this point, I can recognize Mr. Shane.
I appreciate the courtesy, because I know it's unusual, and I'm only trying to help. First of all, I'm not being nosy. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that I've handled every phase of Coquille until tonight. And it's not because, my good friend and, it's because my good friend and client assumed what would happen. I would ask you to take something into consideration. I'm not sure that there's a right or wrong in the debate. I think we all see the problems in the debate. But I can tell you this, what happens in the mindset of the developer, the engineer, and their attorney is that once you get into a development and you have received a requested waiver based on the calculation that you submit without problem, there is no reason for Mr. McHugh to have thought that that would not be adopted for this phase. I don't think that is universal in the sense that it creates a precedent and it means that you have to grant it to every other developer for every other phase. You may feel like if there's another development where phases 1, 2, and 3, you treated them the same way and you want to be consistent. But the economics involved in these things, once you get into them, it's just like you're thinking. You set up a pro forma and a budget, and his was based on that. And I would ask you to take that into consideration. If you didn't take that into consideration, I would ask you to at least think about the possibility of placing a condition, and I'm looking to Mr. Savant to see if he thinks this is possible, that would defer the payment, full payment, until and unless the council adopts or enacts legislation to the contrary. Because this is preliminary. When is this fee actually paid? Before the work order. Well, maybe the fee could be deferred. I mean, there's nothing that's going to happen out there till he gets final and sells lots. I mean, it's no harm to the public is my point. So that if you weren't comfortable with continuing this subdivision in the manner that you have handled this issue in the past, I would ask you to at least think about giving him the benefit of deferring the payment no later than the time he applies for final, which would give him an opportunity to talk to the council and see if maybe other legislation might be adopted.
Mr. Savant?
I think that it would be appropriate if the commission finds that proposal acceptable to go ahead and approve it. My only hesitation is, and we touched on this briefly, is the time period in which the council, if it is so inclined to act, will actually act in this particular case. And the reason I say that is because while this issue has existed perhaps and arguably for several months, not just for this subdivision but for others, it's not an easy fix, because we've talked about applying a standard set of rules to everybody, and the developers and anyone else who comes before the commission should know what the rules are when they come in, without any question. To write an amendment to this ordinance to allow for these types of circumstances is not an overnight quick fix, strike a word here, add a word there sort of situation. But it is something that clearly needs to be worked upon. So as Mr. Shane proposed, if the commission is so inclined to approve that, I think it would be okay to do so.
Okay.
But we obviously would prefer the waiver in being consistent with what you've done in the other phases. And I would suggest that you ask the council maybe under old business or whatever is the appropriate time of your meeting to take up this issue and have the departments meet and make an appropriate recommendation, if they think one's necessary, in order to modify the ordinance. Find out if we think if there is a better law than the current conditions of today.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Shane. Ms. Casbon?
I just think that we're looking at, maybe not, the codes have been written. I understand that. And again, there wouldn't be any need for this body if we just said you meet the code, you don't meet the code. And I think these are cases that we need to maybe leave that, but to be able for us to make that decision. If we've made that decision 2 other times on the same piece or same property, and that again is allowing us to make a decision on each case individually. I don't think the staff is wrong. I don't think the parish is wrong, that these calculations are put there, but in this case where this particular development is being put with the wetlands and where the water's going and what's being developed if he's not touching it, I think that's where we need to be consistent in what we've seen and done before.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Matthews, you still have your line on?
Yes, I do. I kind of like the idea of what Jeff said to grant the waiver until the council acts. That will, if the council fails to act by the time we get to final and the plats are signed, then what we have done is we have given Mr. McHugh what he asked for. If we can get the council to act one way or the other before such time, then this question will be answered. I don't think it's going to be that difficult. I respectfully disagree with council that Mr. McHugh was able to pretty well figure out what acreage would not be included, the green space and detention ponds. And I think if the ordinance said you would calculate this in lieu of payment, less and accept green space and detention ponds, that would make it fairly clear to me. And maybe we'd just be opening up another question, but I don't think so. It just seemed like if we do what Jeff Shane so ably suggested, it solves our problem tonight, and maybe we'll get the council to do something. And again, I think by just granting the waiver, what we have done is we've kicked the can down the road. We're not going to have anything different until the council looks at this and makes a decision as to how this should be calculated. Should we include green space and detention ponds or not? It's a fairly simple question. The ordinance as written says everything. The developers would like it to be the other way, and I think there's nothing wrong with that request. I think it just it flies in the face of our ordinance, and I think we ought to make our decision. And what type of motion would we need to make?
Well, you've got a motion on the
First,
floor.
we've got a
to be
motion on the
heard.
table.
I'm asking council, what type of motion would we need to make to do that?
Yeah, we call the first one.
Well, as I appreciate it, the current motion on the floor is to approve the final subdivision review with staff comments. And that would be with staff's calculations. So if the commission is not so inclined to vote on that motion, then the mover would need to make a change to that motion.
And what would that change be?
Well, I believe what you were saying is that a commissioner would move that the final subdivision review would be approved with the proposed drainage fee calculation.
This is preliminary.
Pardon?
This is preliminary subdivision.
Oh, I beg your pardon.
Point of order.
Too many coquilles on
Yes,
this.
sir.
But with the approval, and along with the developer's proposed drainage fee calculation, excluding the 4.28 acres, whatever it is, Kelly, of the untouched green space, and subject to the remainder of the otherwise due drainage fee to be payable on the phase in question, unless the parish council amends the ordinance calculating the fee due prior to the approval and signing of the final subdivision plats for this phase.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
since I made the motions on the table, would you allow me to amend my motion?
Yes, sir.
I'd like to amend my motion to include the verbiage, all of which, that council just reiterated.
Okay, well,
Can I make a point of order here? We had a motion and a second.
Right.
We had another motion and a second. Now you're amending the first one. Can we
Right.
not just withdraw the first one? Because the second one may still be subject to vote.
You can call the question.
I call the
would
question
like-
on the original motion.
what's on the floor is the original motion to concur.
And you
With
allow me
what?
to make an amendment, and we're seeing if there'll be a second.
Right.
If there's no second, then we'll have to vote on the first motion.
Wait a minute.
Martha?
Excuse
Laura?
me, it goes back again to the point of order. Commissioner Richard just called the question. That means that the motion and the second on the floor is to be voted up or down. Depending upon that, the next step now can be taken.
But I did not necessarily, I have not recognized the call for the question. Okay? Now, at that point in time, now, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, you're a lot more familiar with Robert's Rules of Order, but unless I recognize the call for the question, the call for the question is not there right now, okay? That says that Mr. Matthews can amend his original motion to include what Mr. Savant reiterated. Correct?
Correct.
Okay?
And I'm waiting on a second.
Okay. Is there a second to Mr. Matthews' motion?
Second.
Second by Mr. Davis. Ron?
Well, my question was gonna be, can I rescind my second and Bill rescind his motion so that we can start afresh with a brand-new motion to put on the floor to consider, and just hear me out, to consider the staff's recommendation to approve predicated on or including the deferment of the fee that was calculated.
That is what my
That's what-
amended motion would do,
Okay, and we
Okay.
have a motion and a second.
Well, I
to
was
do
just-
just that.
I was just trying to make
Yeah.
it clean by rescinding my second
well,
and asking you to
that's-
rescind yours so that you can
But
reintroduce a new motion.
that's my motion to do just that.
Okay, I understand what you said. Now, there was, Ms. Casbon, you had a question? Okay. All right, so we have a motion. Do you have any further comment?
No, sir.
Well, you lights on that street in my head.
I beg your pardon.
All right, we have a motion, wait a minute, let me see what, all right, right now, there's 3 votes that are locked in, and I'm not sure that you want those votes to stand. Okay, I'm gonna ask, it's being cleared. All right, go ahead, you can vote now. You're voting on Bill's amended motion, okay?
No, the amended motion is that he gets a conditional waiver. He pays only the amount that he calculated until such time as either the council acts or it gets to the final approval of the subdivision and the plats are signed, then he gets his waiver. If the council fails to act, he gets his waiver.
Okay, I'm gonna
Does
vote.
everybody understand that for the individuals that want to agree with Mr. McHugh, that he's gonna pay the same as we did in phase 1 and phase 2? Unless the council determines that the appropriate ordinance that's out there says
Okay.
it's gotta hold regardless.
All right, now,
Okay.
those of you that have voted no on this are saying that the amount of money that will have to be paid is $51,440.
We got another motion.
We may not have such a stipulation and conditions. We may flat out straight up approve it.
All we're doing is, a nay vote in this says I don't accept this motion.
Okay, all right. All right, so Bill's motion at this point in time failed, vote of 5-4. Okay? Now, is there another motion?
I'd like to move that we approve, subject to the calculations by the petitioner.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Richard to approve the calculations of the engineer.
Second.
Second by, who second? Mr. Mandel. All right, so we have a motion and a second. Please vote. All right, we have a vote of 8 yeas and 1 nay, so it passes, it concurs. Thank you. Dave? Kelly, are you having fun yet?
Yeah, I said, I'm sorry I came. No, I didn't. I've been too far out of town to even give it to anyone, so that's why I had to come late.
No. All right. Come down here a minute. I'm gonna turn the meeting over to our vice chairman for a minute.
Are we done, Cal?
I'm on the next one. We got Coquille Final now. Now, this one's gonna be easy, huh?
That's what they all say.
That's what they all say, that's right, Bill.
No, we already approved that. That's when it moved up. Okay. SD 11-11-005F2, Coquille Phase 2, Ward 1, District 4, developer owner Forest Lake Estates LLC, engineer Kelly McCune and Associates, Inc., Parish Council District Representative Honorable Reed Falconer. Staff?
Periodic inspections have been made by this office during construction, and the final inspection was made on July 30th, 2014. The inspection disclosed that all concrete roads are constructed. Road shoulders need to be constructed, and the roadside ditches need final grading. The following minor uncompleted items existed at the time of final inspection and will be completed before the plats are signed. Items A through M have all been okayed. N, need all signage installed, Need as-built signage drawing and engineer's certification that signage conforms to current MUTCD standards. Need blue reflectors at fire hydrants. Should the planning commission approve the request for final approval, a warranty obligation will be required for the infrastructure in the amount of 1,440 linear feet at $25 per linear foot with a total of $36,000 for a total of 5 years. The staff recommends approval of the proposed final subdivision request subject to the developer complying with all comments, and no plats are to be signed until all items are satisfactorily completed. Mandatory developmental fees are required as follows. Road impact fees of $1,077 per lots at 23 lots to a total of $24,771. Drainage impact fees at $1,114 per lot at 23 lots, a total of $25,622. Fees are due before subdivision plats can be signed. Department of Environmental Services has comments.
A negative bacteriological report relative to the construction of the project's water system has not been issued by DHH as required by Section 4070 of the Subdivision Regulatory Ordinance Number 499. A letter of acceptance and responsibility for the perpetual maintenance and operation of the water and sewer system has not yet been issued by the utility provider as required. Staff recommends approval of the proposed final subdivision request subject to the developer complying with all comments, and no plats are to be signed until all items are satisfactorily completed. Development has no comments.
Thank you. Mr. McHugh?
Yes, the ditches are already been pulled. We're doing the final grading now. The signs will be going in this weekend. The blue reflectors are in. I think that's, so all you would need was the certification to me on the signage. Concerning environmental services, we also manage the utility company. The utilities have been accepted. My secretary, that secretary for that company's been out the last 4 days on vacation. That's why you don't have a letter. So,
All right,
so, but we don't have the DHH letter.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. McHugh. All right. Any further discussion? Anyone else in the audience wish to speak on this? All right, commissioners, Mr. Randolph.
To staff, I'm just curious, how long does it actually take? What is the anticipated or the projected timeline for DHH to come up with their bacteriological report?
They just have to draw a water sample. It's usually a couple of days once they draw the water sample, but it doesn't take long.
Let me say
Mr.
this.
Davis.
Yeah, motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Mr. Davis, seconded by Mr. Randolph. Mr. Matthews.
Just a couple of quick questions. Staff, on number T and number K, have those been taken care of? And I don't understand what they really are telling me, why the dedication and certification statements need to be removed, and remove notes 1 and 3. Why were we doing that?
I think you're referencing the capital I with the dedication and certification statement on as-built. It's not required on the as-built. That the dedication and certification is going to be on the plat, the recorded plat.
Okay, it doesn't need to be on it?
No, sir.
Okay, it doesn't hurt to have it, does it?
It's not needed. I don't believe it would be, per ordinance, is not called for.
Okay. And then, okay, remove notes 1 and 3. I look at notes 1 and 3, and I don't understand why they need to be removed.
Well, right here, they conflict with the restrictive covenants on the plat. I'm not quite sure what they said.
I think they're exactly the same as the restrictive covenants on the plat. Are they not?
I thought they were too. I thought he was only taking them off because it's the as-built paving and drainage plan that's not actually filed in the courthouse. That's what I thought they were doing that for.
That was my question. You said it conflicts, and it looks like it is exactly the same as, there's no conflict.
Well, I don't have it with me. Let me jump up there.
I got the new plat with the change, so I can't show you the old one.
If you look at it looks like it's exactly the same. Maybe I was misreading it.
number 3 doesn't have the 1 foot above the crown of the street. So if they was to look at this, they would go off with that. And then, if they built it 6 inches above the crown of the street, at that point it would conflict with this restricted covenant. So we want to have the same wording in them all. Number 4. So since this one doesn't say 1 foot above the crown of the street, if they base it off of this and then came back and said, what do you mean we're supposed to be 1 foot above the crown of the street? Look at, whichever one. Yeah, right here.
Yeah, I didn't see a conflict there, and number 3 doesn't appear to have a conflict.
Well, the conflict isn't the 1 foot above the crown of the street.
On number 3. Number 1 is exactly the same, though. It's okay.
1 and 3 that's removed, this one in construction of any nature. Oh, we're in a hurry now.
No, not in a hurry. It's just okay. Kelly?
Whatever you want.
You've taken those off?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just took them off.
All right. Do we have a motion on this yet? All right, we have a motion and a second to approve. Please vote. Motion carries. Thank you. All right. SD 04-01-002, F as in Frank, D as in David -2, Gust Island Estates, partial D2, Ward 1, District 4, developer owner, MacInt LLC, engineers Kelly McHugh, Honorable Reed Falconer's District. Staff?
Periodic inspections have been made by this office during construction, and the final inspection was made on July 30th, 2014. The inspection disclosed that all concrete roads are constructed. Road shoulders need to be constructed on the roadside ditches, and the roadside ditches need final dressing. The following minor uncompleted items existed at the time of the final inspections and will be completed before the plats are signed. Items A through G are okay. Need the 911 addresses on the lots on plat. Need developer signature on plat. Label parcels located west of lots on plat and as-built drawing. Actually, the plat is okay. It labeled that little area to the west of the lots, or to the lots to the west. Label the 15-foot private drainage servitude between lots 216 and 217 and lots 221, 222. They need to say private on there instead of just 15-foot drainage servitude. L is okay. Several concrete cross culverts need to be extended so as to provide for the 4-foot shoulder. Need all signage installed. Need as-built signage drawn and engineer certification at signage, and that signage conforms to MUTCD standards. Need blue reflectors at fire hydrants. Should the Planning Commission approve the request for final approval, a warranty obligation will be required for the infrastructure in the amount of 2570 linear feet at $25 per linear foot, with a total of $64,300 for a period of 5 years. The staff recommends approval of the proposed final subdivision request subject to the developer complying with all comments and no plats to be signed until all items are satisfactorily completed. No mandatory developmental fees are required since the developer has entered into a voluntary developmental agreement. Department of Environmental Services has comments.
A negative bacteriological report relative to the construction of the project's water system has not yet been issued by DHH as required by Section 4070 of the Subdivision Regulatory Ordinance Number 499. A letter of acceptance and responsibility for the perpetual maintenance and operation of the water and sewer system has not yet been issued by the utility provider as required. Staff recommends approval of the proposed final subdivision request subject to the developer complying with all comments, and no plats are to be signed until all items are satisfactorily completed. Development has no comments.
Thank you. Mr. McHugh?
Yeah, since the parish's inspection, the final ditches have been pulled on this one, the blue reflectors are in. So you'll need the certification on the signs that need to be put up. The guy works on the weekend, so we'll get to that first part of the week. Utilities are good. It's the same utility company that we own and manage, so the letter will be to you, I would say, by the end of the week. The girl's coming back tomorrow. DHH, I think they have clear water samples. I'll check with Chad. I thought he had them. I don't know why DHH hadn't issued them, but I will check with that.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak on this? I'll close the floor to the public. Mr. Matthews.
Kelly, just one question. The concrete culverts need to be extended. Has that been done?
No, I have not. I just saw these comments today, and I've contacted the contractor, and that's as much time as I've had.
Okay, and that will be done post
Before you pile a plat, and these subdivisions will not be open. They're not sold to the public. They're sold to just 3 builders that are our group of people. So they're not even gonna, people won't be in there. It'll just be us.
Does anyone know why we never seem to have the DHH certification?
It just happens at the end. That's kind of one of the last things that happens. That and the letter of acceptance, never happens before this meeting.
Why? Why? I mean, we're doing final. Shouldn't it be final?
That's one of the last final things that happens, and I guess sometimes the timing of whenever the subdivision finishes doesn't coincide with the second Tuesday of the month.
Okay. Move to approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Matthews to approve. Do I hear a second? Second by Mr. Davis. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, SD 02-06-013, F as in Frank 5-2, Turtle Creek Phase 5-2, Ward 8, District 9, developer owners Crossgates Incorporated. The engineers J.V. Burks and Associates Incorporated. This is an Honorable Gene Belisario's district. Staff.
Periodic inspections have been made of this office during construction, and the final inspection was made July 24th, 2014. The inspection disclosed that all concrete roads are constructed, road shoulders are constructed, and the subsurface drainage is functioning. The following minor uncompleted items existed at the time of the final inspection and will be completed before the plats are signed. Items A through F are okay. Developer signature is needed on the plat. Street name and traffic signs need to be installed in accordance with Parish and MUTCD standards. Blue reflectors are needed at each fire hydrant. Need as-built signage plan. Items K through N are okay. Should the Planning Commission approve the request for final approval, a warranty obligation will be required for the infrastructure in the amount of 1,743 linear feet at $25 per linear foot, with a total of $43,600 for a period of 5 years. The staff recommends approval of the proposed final subdivision request, subject to the developer complying with all comments and no plats to be signed until all items are satisfactorily completed. No mandatory developmental fees are required since a public hearing was held prior to January 1st, 2005. Department of Environmental Services has comments.
A negative bacteriological report relative to the construction of the project's water system has not been issued by DHH as required by Section 4070 of the Subdivision Regulatory Ordinance Number 499, and a letter of acceptance and responsibility for the perpetual maintenance and operation of the water and sewer system has not yet been issued by the utility provider as required. Staff recommends approval of the proposed final subdivision request, subject to the developer complying with all comments and no plats are to be signed until all items are satisfactorily completed. Development has no comments.
Thank you. Mr. Shane.
Thank you. Jeff Shane of the Jones Fusel Law Firm in Covington. I represent Crossgates, Inc., which is the owner and developer. We're in full accord with the staff comments and recommendations. We made a submission on August 5th to your Department of Engineering that addresses most of the items as was noted in the amended staff report, but those items that have not been completed yet will be completed as per the staff comments.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Casabon.
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve, subject to no plats being signed till all is completed.
All right. We have a second. Pug, you second? All right, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Davis.
Yes, who is the maintenance and operator of the water and sewage system?
St. Tammany.
Utilities, Inc.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, that is Utilities Inc. In that phase, huh? Well, that's, all right. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion carries. Thank you. We have any old business? New business? Do I hear a motion to adjourn? Thank you.